Viewers will already be familiar with the many issues and crises currently centering on those of the Islamic faith and their repercussions rippling around the world. For the Muslims among you, perhaps a negative projection of your faith, which is as a consequence exposed, and from which many of you might excuse yourselves, because it isn't your type of Islam that's doing all the global naughty stuff. You convince yourself that it's a deviant form, practiced by those either unschooled or unsophisticated, or insufficiently blessed to extract from a religious text the true message of your God, with which presumably he decided to gift you in contrast to your misguided fellow believers. So which version of Islam is a true representation of it? What draws people to it? What prevents them from leaving it? Consider the following examples of Islamic practice. If you're an aesthete attracted to mysticism and believe devotional dance will help elevate you to a higher state of consciousness from your often mundane and petty life, then Sufi Islam will appeal to you. However, if you're at a stage in your life in which you're trying to assert your masculinity in a hostile environment such as the rough end of the American penal system, and consequently you have an urgent need to secure allegiances with tough-looking and yet assuredly heterosexual men, then perhaps whirling like a dervish would be rather impractical and counterproductive.
Don't you fret now, sweet pea. Big Papa gonna take good care of you in this here jail.
In such circumstances, the right-on-brother approach of the Nation of Islam may be your safest option.
Accept the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, my brother. His words are kryptonite to the sodomite. Oh, you hush now, Leroy. This young man needs some loving more than words. Ain't that right, sweet pea?
Now, having to visit a prostitute for sex can make a chap feel like a worthless shit at the best of times. But for the Islamically inclined, it reduces him from his self-perception as a high-minded, clean-living devotee of Allah to a desperate wretch driven by the need for a lust-fueled bonk with a whore. Well, the Shia version of Islam gives its male adherent special dispensation for a guiltless transition between the sublime and the animal with the raging hard-on. Through the use of a temporary marriage, lasting any duration from minutes to days, he can get his rocks off and still kid himself that he has acquired Allah's consent for soliciting a hooker.
Will you marry me for 30 minutes and £40?
You're cheap, but I need the money, so I accept your proposal.
Well, sign me up and call me Ayatollah. However, if you're unable to express your sexual desires without them spilling over into feelings of self-loathing, guilt, and misogyny, then I recommend that you consider Sunni Wahhabi Islam. As an added bonus, you get to deny the women the right to drive and cower them into submission for any infringement of a moral code biased in favor of men.
Haram, haram, haram.
This careful lady driver would be well advised to take more care to conceal her hostility and contempt from the next category of Muslim, which her present Wahhabi Salafist tormentor is a knife's edge away from morphing into. If ever you feel the need to help propel Islamic Armageddon from an abstract representation of humankind's propensity for conflict to a self-fulfilling prophecy, and while on that journey helping yourself to rape a few Yazidi girls, then nothing quite matches the menace of Daesh, the Islamic State. To be a Muslim not only means worship of Allah, but also belief in a line of prophets ending with Muhammad, as well as the existence of angels, devils, a resurrection leading to a day of judgment, preceding an afterlife. Now consider the plight of the man for whom that bind no longer exists, for whom Muhammad was once a prophet, but now is not.
What? Where is this vermin?
A man unwilling to continue mindlessly profess allegiance to a faith which he now publicly renounces.
How about resolving our differences amicably over tea and cake?